Hi everyone, and welcome back to Dimensional Wellness, or welcome to Dimensional Wellness. This is DeeDee, and I'm so glad to be here with you today, exchanging some vibes, some energy. Make sure that you go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share, do all those fun things, especially heavy on the commenting, especially if something that I say today really sparks something, or if you want to add something, or you've experienced it, even if it was differently. I'd love to hear about it, love to read about it. So today we are going to be talking about the Chronicles of Patrick. So I think I'm going to do this in parts, because child, I can talk. Okay, I am a talker. I'm really a communicator. So I'm gonna try to stick on task. I have literally done this like 4 or 5 times already just today, and it has not been going that well. Like, DeeDee, girl, you are talking too much again. Okay, so anyways, and it's so funny because it's like when I'm like out and stuff like that, I am not really a talker, to be honest. I'm just not, but certain people like I get around and I really like talking to them, so I talk a lot. So that's not the point of what I'm talking about. So let me focus, okay? I usually am a listener, so maybe that's why I over talk. Okay, focus. Okay. So, I'm going to start off with the dream, okay? Because I haven't even been getting through the dream, child. I'm going to start off with the dream, and then I'm going to talk about the crazy circumstances that led up to this dream. I'm going to do it backwards because I was trying to talk about all the connections, and that was going to be an hour in and of itself. So I'm just going to talk about the dream first. I'm going to talk about it all the way through so that I get through it, no distractions, and then we'll loosen up afterwards. Okay. So in this dream, I woke up and I actually thought that I was awake, and I had sleep paralysis. In general, I'm not a person that ever gets sleep paralysis, like never. I maybe like this might have been like the second time in life that I've had sleep paralysis. And I really don't even remember the first one, but I feel like there could have been a time. But anyways, my point is just that I never get sleep paralysis, ever. And so I was laying on this hotel bed, which I did go to sleep in a hotel room with a family member. And so I was on the bed. That's why I thought that I was awake, and the bed felt like the bed and all these different things. Like, it was wild because I was sure I was awake, even though there were certain things that I was like, this is not correct. Like, so this was in January, and the sun was coming up later than it usually does. But in this dream, I looked at the clock, and I don't remember exactly what time it was on the clock. I don't remember exactly what time it was on the clock, but it was something like 6:59 or maybe 7 o'clock or something like that. And I remember looking at the clock and being like, why is it so bright and sunny right now? This is not the time of year where it's bright and sunny at this time. It's supposed to be still kind of the sun kind of coming up. Okay, so that was the first thing that was kind of like, the second thing, because like I said, I don't get sleep paralysis, but I could not move. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move my body. I was stuck to the bed, child. And so I was like, this is very strange. So the next thing I know, there is a knock on the hotel door. Okay. And I heard my cousin shuffle and get up, but she got up really fast. That was like the third thing. Like, something is not correct, because not that she's a heavy sleeper, but she just got up too fast when the person knocked on the door. And so I see her go towards the door, and my first thought was, oh, they must not want me to go to the door because I'm not going to let them in. So maybe she's going to let them in, and that's why I have sleep paralysis. But I just let that be a passing thought, because I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, interesting. I'm just observing what's going on. I'm like, okay, let me just see, because maybe that's not exactly what the case is. So anyways, next thing I know, she opens the door, and the next thing you know, my husband walks in. And as soon as he walks into the door, I'm able to get up, no lie. And in the dream, I just took note of it. I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. But like I said, when he walked in, right, which I'm gonna get to that in a second, but when he walked in, I did not have sleep paralysis anymore. I was able to get up. Okay. So my husband, or so this energy wants me to believe that it's my husband, walks in, and he has this big old tray of food, and he immediately starts talking. Like, oh, I just wanted to stop over here because I know that you girls might need something to eat, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to bring you guys some food, blah, 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 and everything like that. And so I'm just going with the conversation, because somewhere in my mental, I know that something is wrong. Like, this ain't adding up. But I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna just go with it, because the universe has a way, spirit world has a way of, you can be right on the edge of a cliff, and they will make sure you don't step off of it if you're good. So I don't have a problem kind of tiptoeing into something, even though it doesn't seem correct, because I know that when the time is time, I know it has a way of being like, pump the brakes. Okay, so I'm like, this is odd, this is weird. So he comes in and he lays the tray down, and this was subconsciously my next red flag, because I did that night go to the hotel with my cousin, but I did not tell my husband exactly what hotel we were at, the address to it, and not for any weird reason, but my cousin came in town. I was ready to go, and I had my bags. We jumped in her car and we headed out. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, in our relationship, it's just, you could do that. It's not like, oh my gosh, where are you going and everything like that. It's just, it's just a vibe. And so I remember not telling him where the hotel was specifically. So I was like, how did he even get here? Right? And I'm not saying it like I wouldn't give my husband a hotel room. I'm just saying that there are certain circumstances that were set up before I had this dream to let me know that this was something that was really going on in the astrals at that moment. And this was to let me know that this was not my husband that I was seeing, even though it looked pretty close. Now, I've seen servitor spirits before in dreams, especially when they're trying to pretend to be someone to get some type of information from you. I definitely would say that this energy was a pretty good one. I will say that. But anyways, if you understand the nature of servitor spirits, which I have come to understand, having enough of them in my dreams, which I find very interesting. But if you understand the nature of a servitor spirit, it's someone who has sent an energy to you to pick up some type of information about you. But of course, the servitor spirit is going to have limitations, because, obviously a person would be sending the spirit because either they don't know you personally, or they're not in communication with you. So they don't really know your day-to-day life. And so it would be guessing at some things, and you just hope that the person is not lucid enough to figure it out, right? So I was not lucid enough to figure it out, even though there was obvious red flags, but I couldn't catch consciousness enough to be get out of my dreams. So anyways, but I'm not really tripping about that either. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Because, right, sometimes you close the door on things and you miss out on the information too. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so it's like, okay, that's fine. let's see how it goes. Let's see what conclusion are we trying to come to? What are we trying to, understand here? So anyways, he puts the food on the table, and I noticed that there's meat on the table, and we don't eat meat. And so I was like, I'm just taking notes. I'm like, okay, going on like strike number 10 now. Okay, something's real fishy here. And so, I started having conversation with him, asking certain questions, because especially this hotel stay was during the week. And so, of course, we have kids. And so I was asking, did you drop off the kids? How did that go? Blah, 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 blah. Just kind of doing my morning check-in and stuff. And he quickly assures me that he did drop off the kids and everything like that, okay? So this is where it starts getting weird. I'm going to try to articulate it as best as I can because, with concepts, especially start getting into astral concepts and physics and all of this different stuff, the English language itself can be very limited expressing these concepts. So I'm going to try to explain it as best I can. Okay. So he's telling me that, and him and my cousin, they're talking, they're having a conversation, things like that. And so as they were talking, I decided to sit down on the bed that I was sleeping in, right? And I noticed the TV was different. Now, it wasn't a different TV or anything like that, but what was on the TV was different than what I remember being on the TV. Within this dreamscape, okay, so I'm just going to call it a dreamscape. Within this dreamscape that's playing out in the astrals, I know that there's a different station on than what I was laying there listening to when I was stuck. So I'm assuming that, like, while all this is going on in waking world, we'll just say working world, waking life, waking world, that the news was on. So that's what was on initially, which is why I also thought that I was awake. But anyways, eventually as I'm sitting down listening to them have a conversation, I realized that the channel has changed to Nickelodeon. And it's SpongeBob and Patrick on. Okay? It's SpongeBob and Patrick on. Okay? So I'm like, wait, first of all, who else is in this room? Because how did they even change the channel to SpongeBob and Patrick? So I'm like, this is wild. So as I'm sitting down, I start to notice this ripple, we'll say, because I'm not sure exactly how to, explain it, but we'll say like a ripple over the hotel door. Okay, so it's like a vertical ripple starting from the ceiling of the hotel door going to like mid hotel door. There's like this ripple that kind of looks like, we'll say, curtains. I guess we could say it looks kind of like curtains. When curtains have those kind of waves in them, those like really thick panel curtains. It kind of looked like that, and it was, whitish, transparent kind of situation going on. And I was staring at it because I realized that was the transition from this servitor spirit. I'm going to call him Ray Minus. From Ray Minus to my cousin. So somewhere between those ripples, I was noticing that their realities were different. That we were all literally in that moment in the same overall space, but our realities that we were seeing were different. Now, of course, they had certain similarities, right? Because it has to create a sort of cohesion of reality so that everybody's not freaking out, that they can see each other and blah, 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 blah. But there were key things that maybe she was seeing her reality that I was not seeing. And there were definitely things going on in my reality that they were not seeing. Okay? So as I'm noticing that, I feel like a little kick or something on my side, and I realized that it's my son, one of my sons. And he starts laughing at SpongeBob and Patrick. And so I'm like, what? What? So, you know, in the dream world, when things start happening, you have to really stay calm. You can't freak out. Like, whatever is going on, you can't freak out. It really teaches you to think on your toes. Like, you really have to think on your toes. So I saw my son, who's supposed to be one of the kids that's at school that Ray Minus supposedly dropped off at school. And he's actually now sitting on the bed with me. And neither my cousin nor Ray Minus can see him. So I'm like, okay. But they can see me. So I'm like, okay, I really have to be very careful about how I communicate to my son, because I don't know if, like, I start communicating, then they start trying to focus on him, then they start seeing him, and then Ray Minus might start acting different. Because at this point, I can't say that I'm lucid enough to know that this is not actually Ray, but I'm lucid enough to know that something is very odd about him. And I don't want to scare him off, because I'm curious as to what his goal is. Do you understand what I'm saying? I want to know what his goal is. Like, you know, if it's a servitor spirit, you know, maybe some people get upset. People, you know, trying to get in on your reality and spy on you and blah, 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 blah. But I'm more curious about what the end goal is. Like, okay, you're doing all of this stuff, climbing down the chimney, you know. You know, creeping outside of the house, crawling in the gutters and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? You're doing all of this. It must be for a reason. So what's the reason? Now, I'm also a Capricorn, so I'm like, you really could just, like, show up and come and talk. Like, you really don't have to do it. But I'm also with the theatrics sometimes. You know, I don't mind a little theatrics. It makes things exciting, right? And so anyways, I'm like, this is interesting. So I realized that it's my son who has turned on SpongeBob and Patrick because he wanted to watch it. Okay, so then I noticed behind me is my daughter, one of my daughters. And she is also watching SpongeBob and Patrick. And my cousin and Ray Minus also cannot see her. So they are just in my reality, my version of reality. Okay, which is really trippy. So I'm trying to talk to him and still talk to them and not alert them. So I'm like kind of like coughing, kind of whispering things and trying to see if I can play with invisibility. Like, can they, like, you know, could I be not seen and they don't notice it? You know, like, I'm trying to like play with reality to see how I can make all of these different realities work together. So anyway, so he's laughing and stuff like that. And I'm trying to ask him questions. You know, if you have young kids, you know, when they're really into something, they really don't want to talk. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just let him watch SpongeBob. Maybe he's not the one I'm supposed to be talking to. I got really loud when I said that. But I was like, maybe he's not the one I'm supposed to be talking to. So I turned around to face my daughter. Well, on the side of her. And so I'm looking at her and I noticed that she is exhausted. Like, she is tired looking. And, you know, and it's more than just, you know, regular tired. So I asked her, I'm like, you know, what's going on? Why are you looking so tired? Are you getting sleep at night? And so she immediately tells me, she's like, oh no, my imaginary friend is in my dreams now. And I'm like, huh? Now, in waking life, that was very wild. In waking life, there was one time I heard her playing with her dolls, okay? She was going through a really girly time. She only wanted to wear dresses. She only wanted to wear pretty shoes. She only wanted to wear pretty stockings and pretty pants. Like, she really didn't want to wear pants, but, you know, like little stockings and stuff like that. She's going through a really girly time. She didn't want anything to do with boy energy, okay? She does not want to give boy vibes, okay? So anyway, she was, now this in waking life that I'm talking about, okay? This is the time period she was doing this. And so there's one day when I was making dinner during this time period where I heard her talking to her doll, and she was like, haha, Patrick, you're so funny. And I immediately stopped cooking, and I listened, okay? So I didn't go, like, approach her immediately. I just stopped cooking so I could hear what she was saying to Patrick. And so I'm like, Patrick? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you have small kids, the animals are, you know, Barry and, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Doggo and, you know, like they have very simple names for them. Now, sometimes they'll name their dolls and stuff like that after, you know, kids at school or whatever, but it's not super common at that age group, at my daughter's age group. And so for her to be saying Patrick was like very, very specific, and it wasn't girly, you know, so it could have been like Rosie. She could have named her Rosie or something like that. Anyways, so I paid attention to it, and I did ask her in that moment, after I listened for a while, because it seemed, you know, settled, you know, it wasn't any weird conversation, or, you know, she wasn't yelling at Patrick. It seemed like she was just playing. And so I was like, So after I heard the conversation a little bit, I was like, you know, who's Patrick? And she was like, oh, just my dolly. And I was like, oh, okay. Is it a boy or a girl? And she's like, oh, he's a boy. And I was like, oh, okay. Now at this point, I'm not freaking out, because I'm like, okay, she's talking to Patrick, and, you know, obviously nothing is going on. You know, she's not screaming. She's not like, leave me alone. Like, they're playing tea party. So I'm like, cool, fine. Patrick can stay, whatever. And this was actually the time when we got out of the hotel during this kind of transition phase before we got our place. And we're in a different house. So I didn't know if Patrick was the energy that was associated to the house or what, you know, because sometimes houses come with spirits. And so I was like, okay, well, I mean, as long as she's fine, then I'm going to just kind of keep it in the back of my mind. I'm not going to, like, think about it too much. That's fine. So back to the dream. She tells me that it's her imaginary friend Patrick that's been in her dream. So immediately there's another level of consciousness I start to gain, because I remember something about Patrick in the dream. Not fully lucid, but it rings some bells. And so I'm like, well, what does Patrick do in your dream? I want to make sure with no weird stuff, you know, like make sure it was, you know, all good, like, you know, make sure it wasn't nothing strange. And so she said, well, he won't leave me alone because he's trying. And I swear it was like the strangest looking thing. Her eyes started going like different ways and stuff. She's like, he's trying to get to you. So again, I'm not freaking out. We're back in the dream now. I want to make that clear where we are now. We're back in the dream now. And this is what she's telling me in the dream. That Patrick is keeping her up. That's why she's extremely tired. She can't watch SpongeBob and Patrick, because Patrick is in her dream. And he's keeping her up at night because he's trying to get to me. And so it's like, oh, okay, you know, you got to keep it cool. So I'm like, okay. Okay, wow. So as soon as she says that, oh my gosh, this was so crazy. As soon as she says that, I immediately see him. And it was like she was like the door for him to manifest into my reality. So I'm like, okay. And so he's, you know, bald, white man, you know, not white European, but literally like white. You know, if you've seen Friends, you've seen The Watchers portrayed on there. That's pretty much what he looked like, just a little bit more human. Mannerisms and stuff. Definitely, you know, strange looking. Sorry, Patrick. Definitely strange looking. Definitely looked like Voldemort, you know? Like, he didn't have, like, the snake appearance kind of in the face and stuff like that, but definitely in that range of being or whatever, you know? Range of existence, I guess. And so, immediately, I see him pop up, and she is finally able to go to sleep. right? Because the energy has now transferred and now he's gotten to me. So I'm like, oh, okay. So he's staring at me, and the face looks, definitely a little PO'd. He definitely ain't happy. And so I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, Patrick, like, what's good? Like, what do you mean? So immediately, now this was crazy too, because we're staring at each other in the eyes, and the eyes tell a lot. They communicate, right? So we're staring at each other. It says, I'm like scanning him, he's scanning me, and I immediately start seeing that he has been in my dreams. Okay. And these are dreams that I don't know if he was making me forget them, like when you go to sleep and it's just like black and you wake up and you're just like, I'm sure I probably dreamed about something, but I don't remember. Or you think that you didn't have a dream last night. That's kind of my theory, that it's probably energies taking it away, or I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I was definitely seeing dreams that he was in, and it was so interesting because he was pretending to be family from a past life, which was very wild. So I saw like this father figure who looked like he was European in some type of way. Probably, I don't even know where to put it because I haven't even tried to look up the clothes yet. But, if you've ever seen New Orleans and you've seen like wrecks, it's kind of like that attire, very gaudy, very, I don't know, it makes me want to think of like what we consider to be Joker or Jester clothes, but royalty clothes. I feel like it was a lot of velvet or corduroy, or I'm sure it wasn't corduroy, because I don't know if I've heard of royalty wearing corduroy, but it was definitely some type of velvet material or something, dark purple. But it definitely gave me Mardi Gras vibes, I will say that. But this was, so maybe it was French. I mean, that's a possibility, because New Orleans has but then of course that's also Greek stuff. I don't know. When I find it out, I'll link it. So anyways, Patrick was trying to talk to me. So there was a throne, and this King Daddy was sitting on the throne. And so I guess I was like standing, so it was like an elevated platform, and there were 3 stairs. It kind of looked like altars, altars, in church. And they have like the bath where you get baptized on one side of this big old huge altar. It kind of looked like that, now that I think about it. So I was like kind of standing down at the like bottom of the stairs, and I was like looking up, talking to this dad figure. But when I was looking up, talking to him, his eyes were black, and so I knew that the person that was talking to me was not actually my father. And so I couldn't tell who it was, but in the dream I was like, you're not my father. Stop trying to talk to me. Stop trying to talk to me, And I think that's interesting, because Hollywood usually portrays black eyes as like, demonic possession or whatever. And it is probably indicating some type of possession, but I don't think it always has to be demonic possession necessarily, or negative possession. But for whatever reason, it did signify that it was somebody else that was in the body that was pretending to be this father. So anyways, I was like, you're not my dad, stop talking to me. And so I was going to turn around, then I turned back for some reason, and the next person that I saw was my mother, right, who would be the queen. So I saw her dress. She kind of had, same kind of velvet-like material or something. But hers was kind of white and pink or something like that, I think. But anyways, it was the same thing. He was channeling through her too, so her eyes were black, and I could kind of see him, but not really see him. And I was like, you're not my mother, stop it. And the next person was their brother, and then eventually, I don't know what happened after that. So it confirmed to me. I was like, oh, okay, you've been trying to get into my dreams for a while, and you've been trying to disguise yourself, and it hasn't been working. And so now you're like going around to other family members to try to get into my dreams, which in waking life, that has happened a few times, where there's an energy that's trying to come and talk to me about something, and for whatever reason, they can't get into my energy field directly. So they go to like Ray, or they'll go to a friend or something like that. It's happened before. So I'm like, oh, okay, so you must really have something to talk about. So the interesting thing is that I don't actually remember him talking to me after that, because the next thing that ended up happening was there was another knock on the hotel door. Okay, so there's another knock on the hotel door, and this time I don't know who let who in or how these people got in, but the next thing I saw was Ray, which I felt like that version of him was actually him, and he had the baby with him, so our smallest son with him. And then next thing I know, there was like this white woman who was very pale. Now this was kind of sort of European white, but more on like, you know, very pale, like, you know, very, very pale white. And she had black hair, and I didn't know who she was. And then right next to her was this man who looked like a black man. And he had that traditional, you know, if you look up like, you know, wizard costume, there's like the moon wizard costume that's, you know, dark blue, and it's got, you know, silver star and silver moon on it with like the hat, with the Fantasia hat. Now that's the outfit that I remember seeing Mickey Mouse in Fantasia. I could be tripping that maybe it's later on in the movie, but I feel like he used to always be portrayed with this on. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. But anyways, he was kind of in this moon magician costume. And I was like, oh, okay. And so as they were coming in, I realized that this woman was a part of a wolf pack. Okay, a werewolf pack. And I guess she was coming around to certain people to, you know, recruit them to be a part of some wolf group or whatever. I'm guessing that's what it was. So I think, yeah, because she was, so this moon wizard was doing some type of like, let's say, spiritual physical on me to see how apt I was, or to see how intelligent I was, or maybe to make sure I was a quote unquote real person, not an NPC or whatever. I don't know, y'all. Because he was doing it with this wand, so I didn't know exactly what he was doing, but it felt like I was getting scanned. So she was not talking. She did not say hello. Very rude. You know, get 0 out of 5 stars. Get 0 out of 5 stars, okay? Okay, let me get back serious. Okay. Like a 0 out of 5, okay? Because friend didn't come in and say hello, nothing. Like, rude. Okay, so anyways, let me focus again. Okay, so she wasn't saying anything. And I'm like, this is very awkward. And in my head, I'm like, even if you were going to come and ask me nicely, you didn't even say hello. So why would I be a part of your wolf pack in the first place? And I'm not really a person that runs impacts anyway. Not like that. You know, like, that's not really my thing. You know, because in wolf packs, right, how they portray it on TV, there always has to be one alpha. And that's just not really how my brain works. I like to be around a whole bunch of alphas. So there's not going to be one, right? Because I'm an alpha personality in my own type of way. So I'm like, I don't know. So he's doing his little physical whatever. And she looks over to the side of the room. And that's when I see this circular kind of like stained glass window, but it almost looks like it's from a fairy tale. It almost looked like it was from a fairy tale. It's so strange. But anyways, I remember having this very detailed white, like, I wanted to say decadent, but detailed, lavish kind of white, flowery design around. It was a very elaborate window, and it was circular. And so they had these pieces. I think it was like 8 pieces, and then there's a central piece, so it kind of looked like a flower almost. And so out of that window, I could see the moon, and I knew that there was 2 days to the full moon, which I think actually in waking life there was like 2 days to the full moon. Not exactly sure, but I think so. And so she was like building this army of people to change into werewolves to fight some type of battle. That's what I picked up from it. And so in my mind, I'm like, girl, I'm not about to do that. I'm not about to fight with you, girl. No, get somebody else to do it, and y'all can all come back and do karma together, do penance together, do atonement together. No such thing as a holy war. Absolutely, totally not. Okay. So anyways, he's giving her kind of the rundown, the breakdown, and it's like a clipboard. So I get she's going over the clipboard, and so I take the magician over to the side, and I'm like, hey, I know you got this elixir to make sure that my wolf, that I don't turn into a werewolf, like that I don't turn, right? And so I'm trying to talk to him on the side, like, look, help me out, help me to make sure that I don't get picked for this, because I'm not trying to get picked for this, and I don't want to be in the army. Okay? So I'm like, whip up a little potion right quick to make sure that I don't pass whatever test or whatever, because I don't want to be picked. Child, so this man, he pulls out this little royal blue bag, and for some reason it reminds me of Crown Royal, like those little velvet bags they used to have Crown Royal in, but it was like a blue one. And he pulled out this little bottle. It kind of looked like a genie bottle, a little bit, kind of sort of looked like a genie bottle. And there's this electric purple nectar in this bottle. And so that was supposed to be what you drink to not turn, right? Child, I'm trusting this man. And do you know that he gave me that elixir, and it immediately forced me into a werewolf transition. Okay, so here's where I have to pause to explain what is going on. Okay. He gave me the elixir that immediately started shifting me into a werewolf. An inorganic process of forcing my body into turning into a werewolf. So I guess I passed whatever, and they wanted me to be on this werewolf team. Okay? Now this is where it starts getting tricky. So I'm immediately changing, and now my mind is prioritizing getting everyone out of the room. Everybody out of the room. And I don't think he thought that it was going to happen so quickly either, because it was immediate. Like, I'm talking about immediately my feet were getting bigger. And it was crazy, y'all, because I saw my feet literally transition from human to werewolf feet. And it was absolutely insane, okay? Then I saw my hands shifting literally from human hands to freaking claws. And they were big. So this is one thing that I want to say. Like, these were not just wolf claws. And it didn't even look like werewolves that they portray on TV, because it was almost bear-like. Like, these were big. Like, my paws and stuff, they were big. They were not just wolf-like. And they weren't just, small and petite. like wolves either. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It was like almost like bear paws. Like it was huge. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So I don't even have time to be irritated with him. Okay, because I'm like, I need to get everybody out of here because the process is going slow. But I'm not sure what's going to happen as I get to full transition, if I will be able to keep my same, let's say, human consciousness, right? And not go fully animalistic. Okay. So I'm like, get everybody out of here. So she, the one that wasn't talking, the white woman, starts getting everybody mobilized, which is Ray, the kids, because now they can see the other kids. The baby out of there, my cousin out of there, everybody out of the room, to make sure that when I turn, I don't eat them or bite them or whatever. And so as I'm transitioning, so like my torso and everything is transitioning, my teeth literally start growing, like the canines literally turned into like saber-toothed tiger size canines. It was absolutely wild. Then my teeth turned from like human teeth to these little pointy chiclet teeth that were sitting right on top of my lips. My lips got bigger, and actually the little pointy teeth with the big old huge canines coming in the middle part of my lip. Oh, that's so interesting. I just saw my number, 771. Interesting. It swole my lip up so much. Like when your finger or your lip or something is swollen, it has like that tingly feeling that's really uncomfortable. Like I could feel how the teeth shifting around in my mouth and getting bigger in size were impacting my lips. It was bonkers. It was literally crazy. And so I don't even have time to focus on how crazy this is, because I'm not sure that I'm not going to kill everybody on at least the first floor of this hotel right now, because we're on the first floor. Oh my gosh. So everybody gets shuffled out, everything like that. And I have some time to kind of like talk myself down and see if I can talk myself into this transition with consciousness. And because I have Virgo placements, I was like, you know what, let me just do one more survey of the reality to make sure that everything is good. Child, why do I go walk around and check this room? And they purposely left my baby on the ground. Purposely. Now, I don't know if Ray thought that he had the baby, or I don't know what the thought process was with my cousin about the baby. I don't know if they had a decoy baby. I don't know what. But he was there. And so I was freaking out because I'm like, what? Why would they leave the baby? Why would they leave the baby? And so I had to just pick him up through this transition. And so I was like, okay, I know that they probably left the baby, right? Because you see in every single, Hollywood TV show that, as soon as they have their first change, they wolf out and they go crazy and eat somebody and feel so, so terrible. And what does that do? It puts them in the perfect position for somebody to come in and utilize their energy and their power for something else. To take all of that strength that they have and to rule over it, because mentally that person doesn't feel like they are able to make good decisions because their first experience was a traumatizing one. It's like classic in every single, pretty much most of those movies. So that's what I figured, unfortunately, that they were going to try to use the baby as my first kill, so that I would be so torn into pieces that they would be able to coach me and teach me how to be a werewolf and blah, 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 blah. And they'd be able to like rule over, my energy and my power as a werewolf. Turn into the most cutthroat and killer, perfect werewolf of all because of all the rage and anger I'm holding on to, right? So I'm like, okay, that probably is the case. But why would my guides put me in this situation? Now, there's a big old part I'm leaving out, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But I was like, why would my guides put me in this situation? And so I was like, oh, they would put me in this situation, like, just to remind me that I have much more power over my transitions and over my cells and my body and over the way that my destiny goes than I think that I do. And like, I should really trust myself in these really critical transformation points where you could, like, you know, walk the tightrope and you fall off one side and it could be, you know, dramatic and terrible and horrible. Or you can do it with ease and grace and take your time, and it'll turn out fine. You can retain consciousness throughout transitions. And so I was like, oh, okay, they obviously trust that I'm going to be able to slow down this transformation, and when I make a full transformation, I will still be conscious, and I'm not going to just, you know, go crazy and wolf out. Okay. So getting to the part where that I'm leaving out. Now, interesting thing is that this magician, right, this moon wizard who thought it would be cool to give me this potion, knowing that it was going to immediately change me, he made a critical mistake, because he thought that I was saying that that I was scared to become a werewolf. Okay, that's not what I said. I said I did not want to transition to being a werewolf. And there's a critical difference, because somebody that's scared to be a werewolf has never been a werewolf before. And that, in fact, is not what I said. What I said was that I was not trying to wolf out at that moment, and I didn't want to make the transition to being a wolf to go and fight. So it's a very critical mistake that both of them made, assuming that I wasn't a werewolf already. I had werewolf genes. So they weren't giving me some inorganic material to turn me into a werewolf. I was already a werewolf. Which might have been why the transition was so fast, right? Could have been why it was so quick. Because it was activating something that was already there, not creating something. And so I had already made those transitions before. I had already lived a life, let's say, as a werewolf. I'd already had the werewolf experience. And so it's something that I did not have those genes turned on. And I definitely didn't want to turn them on to go, fight some, war of the moon or something like that. So that was like the critical mistake, which I also thought was interesting. So I'm like, wow, like people have advanced to a certain extent where there's something that can artificially make someone into something that they don't actually have like the genetic markers for it, right? Because the way that I look at it, when we start talking about different creatures and all these different things are kind of like, I kind of look at them as like Girl Scout, pins. Even the Army has it, but I don't want to use the Army as an example, but Girl Scout pins. You do something, you do it well, and you get a pin. That's kind of what these avatars are. You do something, you get introduced to the werewolf avatar, you take on the werewolf avatar, and if you do a good job, you master it, then it's like an avatar that you can take on at whatever time that you need it, because all the different avatars have, strengths to them, right? So, you get presented with, the fairy avatar. You live life as a fairy, do fairy things. If you do a good job and you master it, then that becomes an avatar in the next life that you can take on, that you can, let's say shapeshift into, if it becomes necessary. Not in the physical world. I don't know exactly how you would do that in the physical world. I've heard some crazy stories, even about personal family. So I know that in some type of way, it is also possible to shapeshift. I don't remember that, but definitely in the dream world, there are avatars. And so I guess there are people that, get access to avatars that, in a certain sense, I guess they didn't necessarily earn. So it can get tricky, which makes sense because, when you do things kind of out of order and stuff, it can get real tricky and complicated. But, yeah. And of course, I'm missing like the most important part is that, this elixir was electric purple, and also the genes, for a werewolf, I guess maybe a certain type of werewolf. I don't know, but we both had purple eyes, electric purple eyes. So not just purple and lilac and stuff like that, but there was actually electricity within the purple of the eyes, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, that's interesting because I still don't exactly know how Patrick fits into all of these equations, but he was the main one that I was seeing around this time before I realized that this bald-headed being's name was Patrick. Now, what I have taken from it so far, and I kind of forgot how I got to it, so with part 2 I'll go back and like review my notes, but definitely Patrick has to do with Ptah and the priest of Ptah. So like the high priest that served Ptah, which is the Egyptian green deity that's mummified with like the flails and hooks and stuff like that, which I actually saw him in a visualization recently, but I believe that that's where Patrick is associated to, because it's tricky to say where it comes from, because tradition is not just with one person, it's with many people spread out and stuff like that. So it could be words that connect to a lot of different things, but one of the connections I definitely believe is to Ptah, who is the grand architect of the universe, of the univers. Okay, so I thought that was very interesting. I still haven't figured out exactly everything that it's talking about, but I figured out some more pieces to the puzzle. Because I also found out that, of course, there's ancient Nubia, and then before that, at one point, it was actually called Ptah. The land was actually called Ptah, and then before that, it was called just Ptah. So I'm gonna have to do some more research on that stuff and everything, how that connects. But yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to talk about today. I thought it was very interesting, something very interesting to share. So if you've got purple electric eyes, comment down below and let me know what you have figured it out. Because I don't know if that's like all werewolves have purple eyes or stuff like that. And then I was asking Bard yesterday. So that Google has its own AI program called Bard, like Bardo, like the bards in Celtic tradition. The storytellers. I was talking to Bard, and he did say something about beings with purple eyes that's connected to the Dogon tribe and like being from a different place. But I'm gonna have to put all that together, so I'll do that in part number 2. All right, my friends, I hope that you found that very interesting. I hope that it gives you some pieces to your own puzzle, some life lessons about, taking time and focus to transition without losing your consciousness in the process. And about servitor spirits, because those are real. I have definitely encountered them a few times. And you can pretty much tell, like, I don't know about what happens, like, in the dream, because I have not confronted them in the dream yet. I've not been that lucid, which is something I'll probably talk about, too. Like, every time I try to get, like, extreme lucidity in a dream, I literally get pushed out. It's, like, the strangest thing. And it's always like some very weird, horrible experience that happens. And it's almost like a quick punishment or deterrent from trying to lucid dream again. Now, if I were like new on the spiritual journey, I probably would be scared and be like, oh my gosh, that's of the devil and I'm going to leave it alone. But I've been on this thing for a while. So I'm like, okay, somebody don't want me in there. And if I take a good look at why, I definitely understand why. So I'm going to go in there and mess some things up, okay? But I'm going to just keep on knocking until we break down the door. So it's cool. It's all good. But anyways, yeah, that's what I have for you guys today. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share. I'm also going to be doing a second channel that's going to be Christmas themed pick a card readings, probably full moon, new moon ceremonies with scripting and stuff like that, to start making every day just like Christmas. I love Christmas. My birthday is the day after Christmas, so I love Christmas time. Okay. All right, friends. Yeah, until the next one. I'm talking